We are live, and if you haven't kind of checked this stuff out, this is not my office, everyone. This is definitely not my office. We are now at a different location. This is only the second time we've done this. For Rewriting My Story, I'm Dr. Mondo. This is your place to hear the untold stories behind the before and after photos. And tonight we're at a very special home with a very special person and a very special guest. This man needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him an introduction just in case for some reason you're unfamiliar with who Rob Stewart is.
Most people don't know, so just talk from your heart.
Most people don't know?
Well, you never know, so just yeah.
Rob is, I'll give you the accolades first. So Rob has won an Emmy Award for his work on Rob on the Road, a PBS show. Rob has been called the heir apparent to Huell Hauser. I'm sure people know who Huell Hauser is. So those are the things that you might know about Rob. Let me tell you how I've gotten a chance to get to know Rob. Rob, beyond the accolades, Rob is just a very genuine person. Rob has a huge heart, like I do, for wanting to inspire and help people. Rob really resonates with story, I think it's fair to say, and loves to help use his platform that he has with his show to tell people stories. And so Rob's a storyteller. Rob's also someone, though, that has rewritten his story. And I don't know if a lot of people know that about you, about your story. And, they might see Rob and they go, Rob's put together and Rob's got, we talked about this yesterday. Rob's on a pedestal. It's so easy to put people on a pedestal without actually knowing what their true story is, and that you've been through a lot, especially in this last 5 years. And so tonight, this episode of Rewriting My Story, we're actually here in Rob's home. So we're here in his home. He's invited us here.
So are you.
Yeah, so you guys are here too. And don't worry, I'll have my iPad up and I'll be interacting with you guys as well here tonight. So give us likes, give us wows, give us all that stuff to let us know that you're following along. Send your questions in. But what I want to do is I want to flip the script for Rob a minute. And I want to give Rob a chance to actually tell his story. So many times you see some of the best storytellers not getting the same opportunity to tell their story. But there's something so powerful, and I've heard just little glimpses. Tonight, I'm going to be let into parts of his story that I have never heard before, and so will you. So I'm excited to do just that. So anyway, welcome to the episode, everyone, and welcome, Rob. Thank you so much. Why?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate this. I'm listening to you talk, and it sounds like you're talking about somebody else, but I hear you, and I see you, and I receive it. But I do have a lot to say in response to it. You do have a lot to say. Well, I don't want to keep you from that just yet. But I want to say... This is your show. Well, no. Again, I just think it's so unique off the bat. For someone that's usually, and I can relate to that, someone that's usually, as I'm in the therapist role or the host role, you don't often get a chance just to sit and be the one that you get to hear your story reflected back. So yeah, how is that for you, just to kind of hear yourself talked about in that sort of a way? Well, it's interesting because I hear the things that you're saying, and then I think about the things I say about people when I'm sitting there introducing them. And I'll tell you, the things that we highlight about people are really not the things that define us. And you mentioned various awards or whatever. Emmy award, yeah, sure. The truth is, the things that have sustained me in my life were found in the toughest times. Wow. And any type of award, to me, was a sign not about me, but that being a conduit was working, and that I had aligned with what I was meant to be doing, that started with really small steps of just making the next right choice. And sometimes that's really hard. A conduit of what? Yeah, what does that word mean to you? Well, I didn't know at first. 25 years ago, I went into television in news. And I did news for quite a long time in South Carolina, then moved to New York City, from New York to Philadelphia, and then Philadelphia to here. And there were other stops in between, as life has it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I always wanted to share from the get-go. I wanted to plant a positive seed. And at that time, it was someone's home because it was television. Now there's so many platforms, including this one that we're on now.
Right.
And my goal was just to plant a seed somewhere that gave somebody some hope. And in this job, you typically don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
As my career has evolved, I get to hear a lot of feedback. I will tell you, the more honest I've been, the less people say, there's that guy from television, to, and here's the conduit part. I loved the story about so-and-so. It has nothing to do with me. It's somebody's story reached them. And that's what matters to me, because the stories that I tell, I have a litmus test for me.
Mm.
And that is, if it doesn't inspire or hopefully educate or entertain and show that we can get through things in life. By the way, this is my litmus test for television. We all are human and we all make mistakes. Mm. And there are no pedestals, because if you see someone on a pedestal, then you don't know them. Because to know them is to understand that everybody is just one breath away from the struggles that you have as well. And so I just look for the human in people, the heart in you. I don't really care about anything else, frankly. That's the truth.
Well, and you and I are getting acquainted. This is only the second time Rob and I have spent time together. I think all of you that are listening right now and watching, you could tell that Rob and I have similar hearts. You know, the way that you explain the conduit. You're putting language into what's on my heart in a way, and you're further into your journey of doing that.
And I've been watching you. I've really been watching you, and you're doing a really good job.
Thank you. I resonate so much with what you're saying. My biggest hope, like tonight, is to get out of your way and let you tell your story, because I'm the same way. There's this belief, we live in this society right now. We were talking about it on the way over. We are so connected yet so disconnected. And so there's so many people right now that are driving home from work, or they're laying in bed on the East Coast, and they're isolated. Mm-hmm. We're isolated even in our own homes with our partners, things like that. And so there's so much isolation happening and so much hopelessness. And so what this show is about tonight is really about telling someone's story that you feel like you can connect with, and to be able to see the finished product as of now, as of today, the product as of today, and to say, I never thought that could be me. I never thought that I had any inspiration, but this is honestly about, for you guys tonight, connecting with Rob's story and hearing that, as Rob said, and he often says, that there's a mess in his story, just like there's a mess in my story. Multiple messes, right? Clean up on aisle 5 and aisle 7. And so...
And 45.
And 45. So here's the thing, is that you need to understand that his mission is to make a message out of the mess. And so some of you are sitting at home tonight and you're feeling like, gosh, whatever hopelessness you're stuck in, and you came across this feed, you came across this for a reason. And we're here tonight. Like we said, we may never hear from you, but if this speaks to you, by all means, share it, say something about it. But we're here tonight to inspire you, and I don't want to waste any more time. I want to jump into Rob's story, and again, I just want you to listen with an open heart and realize that there was a point where 5 years ago in August, 5 years ago?
August, yes.
August, 5 years ago.
Well, actually, it began in June. So, gosh, it's been 5 years this month.
So, and you just realized that right now.
Yep.
So 5 years ago, give me a picture of what life was like 5 years ago in terms of what was going on, and how were you feeling 5 years ago?
Well, I have to say this first. The problems that I have had in my life are of my own making. And I have the best family, the most supportive, loving family. But life can get broken. And you talked about isolation. And when you have a narrative you tell yourself, or a public job, you can really isolate.
That's what was happening for you?
Yeah, it was, but it was also happening for a lot of other reasons. I'd been in a very, I mean, if you just want me to be completely real.
That's what we're here for.
And I have to realize that since this is online, anyone could see it, and I'm okay with that because I think that the truth will set you free.
Amen.
It is such a simple sentence, but it truly has I heard it right out of the gate for one of the first interviews that I did, which interestingly enough just crossed the 20-year mark. It was a story I did on CNN on a singer named Sandy Patty.
Okay.
And she said in there, the truth will set you free, after embracing a journey of truth in her life. And I hear it with new ears every year.
Interesting.
Because I realize that more truth is revealed every year as we go. You asked about 5 years ago. So it was 2013. Life was very different for me personally. Publicly, my job was going fantastic. It was our 5th season of Rob on the Road. I love PBS. I love KVIE. And I consider it an honor to work there, a privilege, because I love what we stand for. But inside, I was really stuck. And the truth be told, I was stuck in a very long-term relationship that I really thought I would be in forever and really didn't, and deep love. But I had some problems, and I don't tell the other side of the relationship problem because that is their story to tell.
Okay.
I will say this person is a great person, and I have nothing but great wishes for them.
Did it take you a while to get to that place, or you've always been at that place?
It took me a while to say it.
Okay.
And I want you to know, though, that so I'll talk about my side of the street. My side of the street is that I was drinking incredibly heavily every day. I was 75 pounds heavier than...
75 pounds than you are right now. Mm-hmm. I think do people get shocked by that, or do people know that even about you? Because, I mean, people...
I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people at first would say something about the weight loss. A lot of people thought I was sick. Little did they know I was just really sick when I was drinking too much. And
the irony
I know
of
the
this.
irony of the flip-flop, right?
Yeah.
But I'm totally healthy. But, I mean...
So you were 75 pounds heavier.
I was 250 pounds.
You were 250 pounds. You were in a relationship that you said, so you were drinking a lot, but you were happy in the relationship. What was the drinking about for you at that point? Or, I mean, yeah.
It went from a very fun party in college to a party of one in 20 years. And it really took off for me in the years of my late 20s, early 30s. And I was living in New York City, and I went wild. And everything that came with that. And then after September 11th happened, and I realized that I had had anxiety my entire life. My parents did a wonderful job of trying to help me with that as a child. And it was just things I had to work with as an adult. And I coped with alcohol. That's the truth.
Cope with alcohol. So explain your version of anxiety, because I know people are listening right now. I've had panic attacks.
Me too.
You know, so but
that put me in the emergency room.
That put you in the emergency room
multiple times in New York
because you thought you were dying, or you thought something was wrong with you, or
well, the true anxiety attacks for me.
Yeah.
I was convinced I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
Or I was convinced.
And people don't realize that that's like an actual. You're not. Yeah. When you're in that space, like there was no convincing you otherwise.
There is no convincing, because the physical feelings are truly there. I've come to learn, and I'm not a doctor, but I have come to learn that anxiety does produce chemicals in the body, and I think the word is glutamate, can go into overdrive, and those can cause physical symptoms. I'm not a doctor. Do not take that on my word.
But you can take his word for it, because that's all very true.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's all 100% true.
But I do know this. There's no denying when anxiety has built up to that point that it spills over physically. And the bottom line for me with anxiety was always wanting to change how I felt, no matter what. Whether I was happy, whether I was sad. Alcohol became my excuse, because it shut this off. It shut down the committee in my head that had a narrative that was just nonstop.
What was the narrative?
Well, I don't really know.
Because you never took a time to figure out or sit with it.
It was a lot of busy noise. And I'll tell you what, it's interesting that I don't remember or know the narrative, and it wasn't because I was drunk. I mean, it was because I don't remember. The narrative was fear-based. The narrative was based in, it was all fear-based.
Like fear of being alone, fear of being rejected, fear of abandonment. Yeah.
I had deep fears that were never based in reality, and it's so interesting. Those fears, I learned in a recovery program that fear is an acronym: false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
And boy, is that true.
Ain't
because
that the truth?
most of our fears, I heard a new statistic recently. Almost all of our fears are not real, because fear is supposed to be, okay, there's smoke. I'm fearful because that means there's fire. Fear is not. Fear is so often based in something that is inside of you that you don't even know what it is. But I will tell you this, once you start talking it out and saying to someone, having authentic conversations, not hello, how are you, but real conversations matter, and saying, okay, I don't know why, but I'm incredibly fearful about this, and I don't know what it is, and you talk it out, and you realize you're not crazy. And I also want to tell you this, you're not crazy. Because if you can say that, if you can think, am I crazy? Am I just nuts? You're not. You're
because
just human.
There you go. The people who really have to worry about being crazy aren't asking that question.
They don't know, and they need help.
Yeah, right. But if you're asking that question, it's probably more anxiety or it's fear, like you're saying. Yeah.
And I would quiet that anxiety, which could have been chemical. You know what I'm talking about, the body chemistry being off. And my goodness, I certainly drank way too much, so that throws off the chemical in your body, the chemicals as well. But I will tell you that that in and of itself took on a life. Anxiety took on a life that was not me, but it robbed me. And when I had to confront my drinking problem, severe drinking problem, daily drinking, every night after work.
In secret, or like people knew? At home. Alone. Party of one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved to go out, but when you drink too much, you can't go out anymore because it's not safe. I'm not talking about. I would go home after work, and I worked very hard. And I would shut off my brain with drinking too much. And I'd get up the next morning and start over.
Same thing.
Go to work, do a great job at work, come home, start. It was a broken cycle for years. And it was always fun in games in my personal life after that, except for when it turned on me and when I let it turn on me. And
why is that significant?
Because
letting it turn on you.
Because I saw the signs all along the way to stop, and I ignored them. And life will continue to show us signs, good and bad, of what we've got to look for, or it will shut you down. And I had signs all along the way to get off the elevator before it hit the bottom floor, all the way down. And right before it got to the basement, the drinking stopped.
So the basement for you was, I'm going to die, or the basement was your health? What was that floor that you got off on right before the basement?
Well, I vowed to tell the truth, which is what I do. So I will just tell you that it involved a very messy situation that I created. And I did not go to something I was supposed to go to that was important 5 years ago, and then I did not tell the truth about it. And that was when I got called on the carpet. And before I even got called on the carpet, I knew I needed to say, by the way, I also checked into rehab at that time. And so I reached out and I said, here's what happened. I was drunk. I was not able to come to that. And also what I told you was not true. And so I'll never forget, the person that I was speaking to said, if you can right your ship, I will be your biggest advocate. If you don't, I will be your biggest nightmare. And I thank her to this day for saying that, because it was accountability.
Now, she was someone that was, she was a friend of yours? She was someone in your life that was there?
An authority figure.
I see.
And so I had to...
she said, I'll be your biggest advocate.
And she's fantastic.
Or I'll be your and you could envision the other scenario had that happened, huh?
Oh,
Her
yeah.
being, yeah, okay.
Because it could have easily happened.
Okay.
And I really took that seriously. And I was in rehab, and I was isolated in rehab. I got a room that was alone. And about 2 days in, this therapist came to the door. And these are just, some of these things are really hard to say, okay? But I want to help you. And so someone came to my door and knocked, and her name was Kim. And she wanted to come in and talk, and she said, how are you doing? I said, terrible. I went through everything. And she said, how are you really doing? And she kept going until I was out of things to say. And she said, how are you in this moment?
She broke it all the way down.
She broke it down. And she said, how are you in this very moment? In the now. And I said, well, I'm realizing I've made some big mistakes, and I've taken a lot of wrong steps in the wrong direction that are going to take a lot of, I don't know if I can fix this. And she said, I'm going to ask you one more time, how are you in the now? I said, I guess I'm okay. And she said, now is, okay, some of us struggle in being in the now. So how do you do that?
Yeah.
How is an acronym? Erase all the circumstances of your day today. Tonight, tomorrow, yesterday, in this very moment, just me and you. How are you? How? Honest, open-minded, and willing, not to the future or the past, but to this moment. And I can honestly tell you, in this moment, I'm okay. Those moments add up. When we live outside of our current moment, they add up the wrong way.
So in that moment when she asked you that question, you were living without knowing outside of that moment because you were stuck in the past, like feeling like, oh boy, or in the future of
all
God.
of it.
All of it. You weren't in the present.
Yeah, I wasn't in the and in fact I would argue that I probably wasn't at all before either, because
and that's what I wondered.
How can you be in the present when you're working all day and then drinking at night, and it's a constant cycle that serves no one but me. And when 3 months later, my partner came back to town, and it was my 5-month anniversary, 5-year anniversary with my show. And my partner came back, and we had a discussion, and he decided he was leaving and not coming back at all again. Had been on assignment for about 1.5 years in New Orleans. And my mom flew out here that night, and I just remember answering the door, and there she was on my doorstep at midnight. And I looked at her that next day, and I said, Mom, I really need to talk this out with you. And this was after rehab and then 3 months of outpatient, okay? Monday, Wednesday, Friday evenings, 3 hours a night after work. It was a commitment.
And for someone you were making a commitment to not being in the moment, and you swung the entire other way to like making a commitment to encountering the tough things.
I had to radically change my life by taking small steps.
Okay, because that could get lost, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you think it can get lost in everything, because when you think you have change to make, you're already lost in it.
Yeah.
Because if you think I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and for me that did not work. I had to address the moment.
Yeah, well, I don't think it works. And that's right now you're hearing Rob's story and you're saying, I want to get there. That's so much work. Again, where are you at in this moment? I always say, and it's something that I borrowed from Michael White, who's a therapist that I love, that says, it's not the size of the step, it's the direction that counts. Mm-hmm. And so really, it's these inches that we're taking. How big of a step was that moment of that therapist knocking on your door and saying, how are you, how are you, how are you? No, how are you really doing? And getting you, that was a gigantic step in hindsight, but at the time it seemed very simple.
It seemed no like different than the other steps,
right,
in the wrong direction. But when you respond to the moment, then they add up in the right direction.
There you go.
We all know right from wrong.
Right.
We don't feel like doing it sometimes. But those baby, J.J. Virgin, you mentioned a quote, I'll mention one too. She said, small hinges swing big doors. You just don't know it at the time.
That's it.
And those baby steps of right this minute, what are you supposed to do right now for you? Is it get out of bed and shower?
Right in this moment.
Yeah. Is it call someone and say, I need help? Is it just walking outside if you can walk? Is it looking yourself in the mirror and say, I'm going to make a conscious decision to choose a new path? Those little things, but you've got to keep doing it over and over and over. And when you start to take little steps in the right direction by basing them in the moment and knowing it will lead you to what you need to do next, even if you have no job, no money, or homeless, everything. In this moment, what is the next right thing? One step forward. It will come. And I promise you, the promises of this universe align over time, and you get big signs very early that you're on the right track.
Did you get big signs very early in that? I mean, because as I'm listening to you speak, first of all, I don't know if you guys are noticing, I'm taking deep breaths. Just the reminders of this is a breath of fresh air to me, and I imagine it must be for people out there too. It's like, oh, you're right. We're in this moment. That's what we have. That's what we need to focus on. But people are going to hear this again and they're going to say, oh my gosh, I can't get to where he's at. When you were in the midst of the addiction, and you haven't talked about food, but I imagine food is just another way to numb out, right?
Yeah, it was just another layer, and it was and I still would love to eat a lot, but food for me was how I managed my hangovers. So I ate really poorly.
Okay.
And I really blew up. I mean, my weight got big, and I was healthy. And the doctor sat me down and said, "What in the world is going on with you? You are this close to having diabetes. You are obese. You're on high blood pressure medication. You're on anti-anxiety medication, and you are, and your liver's suffering." And he said, you have fatty liver disease, okay? 5 years ago. And I still didn't want to address the drinking.
That wasn't the bottom floor.
And he said, what's going on here? And my response was that I felt, it has to be the food, because I could not imagine living without alcohol. So it didn't even cross my mind.
And that was the other thing too, like you're so honest, and like back then I'm hearing you fighting with that value and that ethic of honesty. Like I imagine you really believed in honesty back then.
Very much so.
It was just really hard.
My actions did not. I wasn't lying, but I certainly wasn't living the truth. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing. It's
right.
Not, when you're not living your authentic voice, and you may not even know what it is, but it's that little step of what's next. What can I do in this moment, even if it's just pause and do nothing? Don't go backwards. Even if it's just a pause and say, what do I feel is the next right thing for me? And don't move until you know it. That is where that magic begins. You say, did I ever think I'd get where I am now? I don't even know where that is, because all I know is now that I mentioned the day my mom showed up on my doorstep at midnight. I said to her, I would love to go get a bottle of wine. and just have one bottle of wine with you to talk about what's happened. And she was standing in my kitchen, and I didn't live in this house then. And one shift of her head, and her soul spoke so loudly to me, and the obsession died.
What was it that spoke to you?
My mother's heart of saying, you're never going to get this. I'm scared you're never going to get this.
She said that to you?
No, I felt it.
You felt it from what?
I felt her say, I'm scared you're never going to get this, or either she was saying, life, you need to live life. There could have been a million things she was thinking. It didn't matter what she didn't say. It was the energy she sent me was, it's over. But it was my decision to make. And when I made that decision, I have not put one drop of alcohol in my mouth since. And I will tell you, the first year, I was very active in a recovery program. I still, to this day, help and work with people who are in recovery. I don't go as much as I should, but I try to live a life of service. But I will tell you this, sitting in the situation does nothing. Talking about it and getting outside of that brokenness. I love stained glass windows, and I never knew why until I heard the story of a stained glass window that is just shattered glass put back together in different colors to let light shine through. And to me, I could relate to that because I felt really, I felt fake. I felt that I had this image that was unauthentic of everything's great, and then I would go home and I would drink myself to sleep at night, and that was probably the narrative, that I'm a fake, a phony, even though I knew I was a good person and always have had a heart for helping other people. I tore myself down.
But your why, to get this right for the audience here, your why was not, and this would have been a great why, by the way. I need to lose 75 pounds, or,
Mine was too far gone.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be great to not have this doctor on my back about all this health stuff.
Change doctors. That's what I did.
There you go. But I want to get this again. Your why, the way I hear it, is that my why is that I need to be more congruent with living out my values and my ethics. Mm-hmm. And I'm not, if authenticity really matters to me, if I want to be authentic, then I need to be authentic, and I need to have my life align with authenticity. Like a lot of what I see you doing, it was you realigned your life in response to that ethic and that value, and everything else in your life got aligned in terms of your health as a result of that.
Yeah, but I will say this. I go back to getting in trouble. That
now or
no, 5 years ago.
Oh, okay, that's not the end of it. That's okay.
No, when that person said to me that it was, I'll be your biggest cheerleader, or I'll be your biggest nightmare, something along those lines. It was over, and it was already over for me because it had spilled over. It was spilled too far. My mess had spilled too far for it not to get out. And and that was a blessing because it needed to get out. Because I couldn't do it alone. And so when I addressed that in the moment, little things began to happen. Things worked out in ways I would have never expected or predicted. The dreams I thought I had ended up to be different dreams, more beautiful than I had thought could be. The loss that I've experienced during this time of non-drinking has been profound. But how in the world could I have done that wasted? I do not rewrite my story. I rewrite my thoughts. Because my story is proof that my thoughts had me. You can have thoughts, but they had me. And I had to realize that the thoughts I have got got to be based in more reality and more less just crazy making over nothing. You're the doctor, so take this in the direction of where it needs to go.
No. Give people out there, because I'm sure people are hearing that. There's people right now that are listening and resonating with so much. But I would love to hear the thoughts today, but I would also love to hear the thoughts then. Do you remember some of the thoughts that you used to have? Because there may be someone out there right now that's listening that goes...
Yes, I do remember them.
So what were some of the thoughts? Yeah.
I thought that I would never get out of debt. I had created a huge amount of debt for myself. It was a cycle that continued over and over. I thought I would not get ahead.
I'll never get out of debt. I'll never get ahead.
I'll never get in shape.
I'll never get in shape.
I'll never get... I'll never make it to where I want to get. And that was what got me. Because I had this image of what I wanted to get to, and that image sat there for a decade while I put in time. And when you have this image of what you think you need to be, instead of trying to actually do it and not getting out of your own way, I was the only one in my way. I had dreams, and I got in the way of them. And I abused substances because of that. When I stripped it all away, let it all drop, and said, what remains? The only thing that remained to me was, I want to put hope in action. And I had to do it for me. And it was scary starting over at, 40 years old. Very scary. It's scary when you start over at 20. It's scary if you're starting over at 80. I know people who are starting over in their late 70s.
Is it ever too late to start over?
Never. If you have a breath, it's never too late. Never. And we are only a breath away anyway from all of this being over. So why not live in this breath? We can let it be riddled with fear and anxiety. And listen, I get it. It sounds like it's so much easier said than done. I know it's not. I ended up in multiple hospitals in New York City with panic attacks. I know the feeling of thinking I'm broken. But those moments of fighting to get outside of this will add up. And you will be not restored. You will be new. And it just takes a lot of work. But the truth is, it's a whole lot harder living like we're living, or like you might be living now, versus living and working toward freedom. I thought I never could live without alcohol. So now I think, how in the world could I? I could never even fathom.
That's the incredibleness of feeling states and places we're in. There's someone watching this right now that's resonating a lot with the thoughts that you just shared. They might even think the same about food addiction or alcohol addiction.
Any addiction.
And they may sit here and what would you wish you could have said to yourself now if you were watching something like this 6 years ago? And if there's someone watching this now that really is in a similar position to the position that you were in 5.5, 6 years ago, what do you hope that they hear right now from you?
Here's what I know for sure.
Okay.
I cannot tell you anything magical to change your mind, but I can tell you this. My life blossomed in brokenness and in beautiful ways when I got out of my way and started to responding to every moment as something that mattered. I failed at half of them still, but every moment you try to make matter with authenticity and with action is a moment in the right direction. There was nothing anyone could say to me that said, okay, I tried all the medicine that made you quit drinking. I tried those things, and I drank on it. Not a good advice. And I will tell you that there was nothing anyone, I don't think, could have said to me to make me stop. I had to surrender, and surrender does not mean give up. It means I am laying down this fight. It is no longer worth it. People think, I remember seeing step one in a recovery program. It said powerless. I went, I'm not powerless. I drive to the store and buy the alcohol. I choose to do this. Oh, then replace the word. Get rid of powerless. I have a problem with.
But powerless and surrender are synonymous.
You know what? Or they're complete opposites. Because if you are powerless over something, to me that felt negative. Surrendering to it gave me hope. It's just a word play. If powerless is better for you, go with it.
I think you're right, though. Surrender for so many probably inspires something different, because there's an assumption in surrender that's not in powerless, right? There's like an assumption.
Yeah, I laid it down. I said I choose I choose to separate myself from what the pattern is that's keeping me stuck, and I didn't choose it without the help of force.
And there was two people that were significant in your life. It was your mom on your doorstep, and it was also the help of the
and many more.
Many more. But those two like super pivotal moments of those really powerful women in your life. Another, that both just kind of had those moments of honesty with you. For people that are watching right now, again, whether it's food, whether it's drinking, whether it's Facebook likes, or whatever it is that someone's addicted to, how important is it for us to allow ourselves to be not just honest with ourselves, but allow others to be honest with us?
Well, I think in sharing our story, heart to heart, hand up, out and open to someone, and authentically telling someone the worst of you is what is lacking in humanity now. The fluff talk has got to go.
I'm with you,
man. The
man.
small talk in the elevators and how's the weather and all that stuff. There's a time and place for everything. And by the way, authentic conversations, you also want to lighten up with some of them sometimes too, but they really matter. Because those are the ones that can give someone the glue to say, okay, if that person made it through a bunch of junk in their life, maybe I can start to see it. But listen, I almost lost my marriage ended, my job almost ended, and I lost a lot. I was faced with, I had to stop. Now one could say I still had a long way to go, and I could have, but that was it for me. I don't know what it's going to be for you, but I do know this. You can choose right now, for whatever is holding you back in life, to visualize a step and walk over it and leave it there. It sounds stupid, but when you take steps to change your moments, they add up. And I have been riddled and bedridden with anxiety and lived with all of that stuff. I get it. But the only way through it is with action. You can't think your way through it. You got to change your patterns and your habits.
And the surrendering is a surrendering to help too for some. Like what I'm getting from you is that part of my action was to get in community. How vital was that for you, and how vital, like I remember reading about how part of that period of time for you was also the way the article was written was that it was like you were moving more into the city and you were getting closer to things. And so how important is it for some people, if they're recognizing some of what you're saying tonight about their own stories, how important is it for them to not just surrender and not just to get in, to ask for help, but also to get into community?
Getting into community is essential but you have to get into community that you feel like-minded with. And a lot of that starts in finding areas of people who have been through this, who are also trying to change.
They speak the language.
In the valley with you. Because there's a universal connection no matter the circumstance that is a great leveler. And everyone's the same when you're talking about problems. And then I needed to get involved in the community. I needed to do something to give back. And in 5 years, I've immersed myself in this community, and I love it.
Who's your community right now that you would consider is in the thick of it with you, even now?
Oh my goodness, people or what?
Yeah, people, or is it organizations? Is it
I am very, very, very grateful for the people in my life, because I have learned and seen how quickly they can go. In the past year, there's been death and quite vivid. But I'll also tell you this: they lived life, and my community right now is still is very based in real. And my friends, my close friends, we keep it real. My relationship and my personal life, keep it real. It is all about helping each other grow. And if I can't help you grow, or if I can't help you see that your best light is there and I see it, then I'm not in my community. My community is solely based in inspiration.
And is that a big difference between what your community was 5 or 6 years ago?
Yes, because of action. Because it was that way in my head, but it wasn't that way in reality.
Right.
I thought I was living that way. Boy, was I was incongruent. Now I'm conduit.
One of the things that you say, incongruent, you know, I always say sometimes anxiety is a warning signal attempting to just let us know. It's
a trigger. Your body's telling you something's wrong.
It's an indicator light. But often it's that incongruence of the world is telling me I have to show up one way, or the message I'm getting is that when I step into this household, I get the feel that I can only show this side but not that side. And so that incongruence is what manifests a lot as the anxieties.
It's interesting. People have many different, I included, many different ways we think we have to be around many different people. And that's what it is. I think it's when I became the same person everywhere I went, my life started to align. When I was me at home, at work, on television, in public with strangers, or at an event with 1,000 people, I'm still the same person. So that's when my life began to be authentic, because I was being authentically me. And then you find your community. Now, I will also say that this world, and I've been guilty of it, social media, we can put the best of our lives on there, and believe me, I've been guilty of it.
Yeah, we all
After
are.
every filter's been changed and you've done everything you can to make it look fantastic. But the truth is, this world puts a lot of pressure on us. And we need to get back to nature. We need to get back to people.
Yep.
Social media has a wonderful purpose, but you can get lost in the loneliness and the addiction of a phone.
Yeah.
And you've got to restore human to human, heart to heart connection by just talking to somebody. You know, there are people in this world who I never thought would be so close to me in my life, only because we shared our worst. And when you have an authentic conversation with someone, I've stopped saying, "What do you do?" And I say, "What makes you happy?"
I love that.
I try not to say, "How are you?" I say, "How are you now?" And I try to keep the conversations away from what we do for a living, because most people aren't happy with what they're doing for a living. And that's okay, because if you're not happy with it, at least you know it's not what you're meant to be doing.
Right. Being in the trenches, guys. I know we're up against time.
I have a live shift at work in 30 minutes. So
did this fly by for you like it flew by for me?
It was an hour. It was quick. So
this is part one.
What made you do this?
What made me do this was growing up as an overweight kid who was raised by a single parent mom who taught me from a young age the importance of doing this, having intimate and really powerful and authentic conversations. And the overweight kid in me grew up feeling like there was a lot that of my experience that never really got shared as being an overweight kid. And I was lucky. I wasn't one of the kids that was picked on for being overweight, because I was pretty good at making people laugh or entertaining people. So, but that insecurity always resided in me. So what made me want to do this is that I knew that when it came to specifically the overweight thing, that there's so many people that are overweight, that are in pain, that are in isolation, and that needed an outlet to say you're not alone. And then I also know there's a lot of people that lost weight that are still miserable. Mm-hmm. And some of them gained the weight back, and some might keep it off, and we're still figuring out that, because that statistic is so, like, you're an anomaly.
You study that.
Yeah, I study that. So, but it's really this sense of, so in a lot of ways it's me saying, I know what it's like to both do this, and how good this feels and how essential this feels. And I also know what it's like to struggle silently. Mm-hmm. And so I have a heart for both of those. And for me, why I do this is honestly because I feel like my calling spiritually and all of those things is honestly to get the people that are on the sidelines back in the game. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is just one of the ways to do that, because someone's watching right now, Rob, and they're pulled over at a drive-through, and that used to be me. They went through the drive-thru after a long, stressful day of work, and this is their buffer. And they're on Facebook, and they clicked on this video, and they're in the middle of the Big Mac, and they're sitting watching this. Someone else is sitting on the East Coast at home in bed, feeling lonely, isolated from their partner.
Or drinking 3 bottles of wine at night and having a large pizza all by yourself.
There you go. Or, hey, for me, I wasn't as much into drinking because it killed my father, and there's another layer for me of probably what I do. Yeah, thank you. But it was, for me, it was marijuana. So we all have our things, and so I resonate with everyone out there right now who's feeling alone, and why I do this, and why I'm interviewing Rob, and why we're telling Rob's story the way Rob is because I want to reach people out there and say, look, you might be lonely, you might be isolated right now. We are selling something. I'm going to tell you right now, we're selling something right now. We're selling hope. We're selling inspiration, and we're selling someone's story that lived and really got back to living in the moment, and as a result of that found hope and found inspiration. And what I want people to do, and the reason we're here tonight, is I want people, if you are feeling right now like you resonate with any of this, again, what is the first step for them if they're there right now? If they're in the midst of it?
The very first step is saying, right now, there is something inside of me I need to change actively. Not think, but do. Not think, but do. Practice, practice, practice. It takes a lot of undoing to stop the broken record in your brain. But I can promise you, not only can you stop that broken record, but you can break it and throw it away. And for those of you that don't know what records are, that's what there was before music was electronic.
It went records, and then what was after records? Was
CDs.
No, there wasn't an 8-track?
Or tapes.
Tapes?
Yeah. 8-tracks, tapes.
8-tracks,
CDs,
tapes, CDs.
And now they're just on iTunes.
You can Google all of these things.
Yep.
And you could even probably see videos of them on YouTube of people using them.
We mentioned different vices. Mine was alcohol, yours was something else. Whatever the vice is a vice.
Yeah.
It keeps you... I felt like there was a vice around my head. And I will also tell you that just when you start making the right decisions to help yourself, it doesn't just immediately change. But you change because you show up for the fight. And there have been times where I've handled the weight loss in very unhealthy ways, by the way, in the last 5 years. Not with alcohol, but with unhealthy ways with eating and choices around that. But it all comes back to breathing, trying to be in the moment, and connecting. You really need to connect with another human too. Teams are important, and you need to find a person that you can connect with by just telling your truth.
Some of you tuned in tonight and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I thought I tuned in for a show about weight loss and transformation. And my goal every single week is for you to tune in at some point and go, is this the show that talks about, yep, this is the weight loss show. Because why? Because overeating, whatever the vice grip around your head is, it's all a symptom of a deeper problem. And so if you really want to get to change, look, change the channel. There's someone that's going to tell you they got the magic solution to losing the weight for good.
You're the magic solution.
But that's it. But you're the magic solution in being able to say that all of this is a symptom to a deeper wound that is begging for your attention. And that is what we're here to say, is that it doesn't matter if you're tuning in because your shame is obesity, or your shame is drinking, or your shame is smoking pot, or your shame is shopping or sex, or whatever it is. I'm not worried about the symptom. I'm worried about the root. And when I say worried about it, I care about the root. And that's why we're here. We're here to inspire you to do what Rob did 5 years ago.
Not did, but does.
Does actively, which is to tune into that. And I like that, and I know that, again, this is this happens a lot on this show. This is part 1.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. I hope that's okay.
I have to say one more thing really quickly, though. You talked about you talked specifically about weight loss, and now hearing that it's a weight loss program, but you may feel like you have too much to lose to do this, but you have too much to gain. You have too much to gain to lose. And it starts with one small step of listening to that inner voice of what is right and what's wrong. We all know right from wrong. We all know what makes us feel good, and there's a difference. It's what we need, not what we want.
Oh my God! I wish we had more time because I
have to go to work.
I know you got to work. He's got to go to work. My gosh, there's so much that I'm resonating with.
I want to leave you with this. I don't see your shame. I don't see your brokenness. I see the smile of your soul that you want others to see. I believe in you. You can do whatever it is you set your heart to doing if you get active. A future awaits for you bigger than your wildest dreams, but you have to show up for it. I can promise you that our circumstances are not our calling. A disease is not a destiny. And your life is for the living. So live it.
So many of you have heard this message before from Rob because this is what Rob does. But for some of you, you've never heard his story behind where this message comes from. He's living proof. Until next time, guys, we thank you so much for tuning in here.
I still have problems. Don't get it twisted.
Okay, that's for part 2. Part 2 is going to tell you about some problems.
That's just human.
That's human, yeah. And that's the thing. Again, rewriting our story or, continue. This process is continual. So he doesn't have it all figured out. Neither do I, that's for sure. But again, I'm so glad you guys tuned in tonight. Rob, thank you so much. Rob is going to go to work right now. He invited us into his house. We better get out of your house. But listen, everyone, we'll be back in your house next week, Tuesday night, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 9 p.m. on the East Coast, or whatever it is. Do the time conversion. We'll see you. This is Rewriting Your Story with Dr. Mondo. Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you so much for having me.
Mondo.
Yeah.
Great to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thanks.
Proud of you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. It was amazing.